Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast centered around Black men, inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. This episode of I Change the Narrative is sponsored by So Organic, So Suave, also known as Sauce. Sauce is a luxury hair care and skin refuge for those with thick hair and melanin rich skin. From healthy beard growth to top of head hair styling to an illuminating skincare regimen. Sauce Essentials will naturally enhance your outer appearance to strengthen your inner confidence. Sauce invites you to accept the authenticity and real self care and embrace your best. You can find Sauce's award winning grooming essentials online at sossd.co. Again, that's sossd.co. You can also follow Sauce on Instagram and for the latest in product news and updates at sossd.co. Elevate your grooming with Sauce today. Today, we're talking about the narrative of masculinity. Before we start the conversation, I want to ask our guest to tell us about himself, where he's from, and the work that he's involved in that lends itself to the topic and the lived experience. Dr. Eddie.
Hey, glad to be with you today, changing the narrative. And that's what it's all about. That's what I'm really trying to do and strive to do. Glad to be on your segment and your show and your podcast that really speaks life into the lives of black boys and men like myself. Frederick Douglass said, if we build strong children, we won't have to repair broken adults. And so I really empathize with that. I was one of those children who, in many cases, was seemingly the least, the last, the lost, the left out, the overlooked, the underserved, and the underrepresented. Based here in Detroit, my hometown is Motown. The 313 represent as we say, what up, though? And if we had the movie The Color Purple on the screen, I'd say, just like Sophia, all my life I had to fight. Fighting through fatherlessness. 2022 marks 22 years of me being cancer free, to where I don't look like what I've been through, overcoming stage 4 cancer and being able to find the can cancer and turn all of those negative obstacles into opportunities and those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. I really believe that your test is testimony, your misery is ministry, your mess is message, your stumbling block is a stepping stone. What God will do is He'll use your setback as a setup for your greatest comeback. He'll use your tragedy as strategy. And so I try to strategize my life as a result of coming out of cancer to empower people to overcome obstacles. I've done that as a writer of 14 books, college professor, former high school teacher, founder of a mentoring program called Boys to Books, as well as itinerant minister, as well as speaker around the country, really empowering people to develop who they are. And then I do that through an online community called the Eagles Academy, empowering people to soar into success and purpose. So glad to share
Awesome.
with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to have you. Um, as you said, you are a best-selling author of 14 books, but I want to talk specifically about The Mask of Masculinity. What is that book about?
Well, the Mask of Masculinity really speaks to the whole aspect that being a man is hard work, but it's hard work. And I think the hard work really comes when we recognize and realize that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Ever since we've been a child, they've been telling us stand up, be a man, don't cry. Crying is for girls. And as a result, we move into the livelihood of being a caricature rather than walking in the place of what true character represents. A real man is not what he has, but it's who he is. And I think at the end of the day, we're more like Clark Kent than Superman. We're more like David Banner than the Hulk. We're more like T'Challa than Black Panther. And so taking off the mask and the cape to give voice to our emotions, or as Bishop T.D. Jakes would say, our emotions, turning the struggles into strengths, and even recognizing that that struggle becomes our superpower to really make us the superheroes. And so in the book, and I might as well do a little visual aid, might as well hold it up, The Mask of Masculinity, available on Amazon, Audible,
Yes.
iTunes, Barnes and Noble as well. It just empowers readers to address the fears, the failures, the father wounds, and the frustrations that men deal with, but also provide a inside perspective into the mind of a man and how women can create a safe space and place for men to be vulnerable.
Mm. That you said a lot already. What inspired you to write the Mask of Masculinity, or at what point did you come to understand the mask that you wore?
Yeah, as I said before, it is that color purple aspect. All my life I had to fight, but in
Mhm.
many cases, all my life I think I was trying to write, and I was writing through many cases the pain and the turmoil of what it is. Seeing in many cases my father, the man I looked like the most, seemingly who cared for me the least, never visited me one day in the hospital. Grappling with the father wound, so to speak, mentoring young brothers
Mhm.
who were dealing with the same father wounds that I had, and now trying to provide restoration, healing, and clarity and mentorship to other young men, but also recognizing that mental health, you can't spell mental health without men heal. You
Right.
can't spell mentor without men. And I think us as men, mentorship is not just men to boys, it's also men to men. Men need mentors as we grow older, as we're making those little turns in life, as we're shifting and we're transitioning, trying to find transformation. So I really wanted to write a book that lets brothers know, listen, I'm in the fight with you. You don't have to mute your voice. You don't have to just go through life being maladaptive, much less living on autopilot and being numb to the world. You
Mm.
can really express yourself and still maintain your masculinity and not see it as femininity. Masculinity and vulnerability can coexist in the same space. And I wanted to
Yes,
share about that.
that is awesome. So, how did you first discover your own healing? What did you go through to deal with that healing, other than the book? What were your steps like?
Well, I think for me to go through the healing process, I think one thing that when I'm thinking in retrospect, what I had to do was, deal with therapy, go to therapy,
Mhm.
go to counseling. And a lot of times us as brothers, we think that help is weakness.
Mhm.
Asking for assistance means that something is deficient on the inside of us. When really certain things just need to be exposed, certain things need to be remedied. And I think the counseling and the therapy, I think you need, yes, Jesus and a therapist.
Yes.
Scripture says, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. And
Mhm.
so finding counseling, finding a sounding board, a listening ear without judgment.
Mhm.
And my philosophy is I don't have a law degree, so I don't judge. And so
Mm.
being able to find the type of individuals who can give you real clarity, uh, give you also wisdom as well, and then being able to go through the process of saying, you know what, this is an issue. If you
Mm.
think about certain organizations out there, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, they say the first step to remedying the issue is to admit that there is a problem. And
Absolutely.
I think when we take off that mask to look at the frailties and the failures of what it is that we've experienced in our lives, the hurts, the fact that we're not just a victim. Sometimes we've been the perpetrator. To look at all of that and say, hey, I want to get better for my family, for my community, for myself in general, because I can't pour from an empty cup. Hurting people hurt people. And until you heal, you're going to always bleed on people who didn't cut you.
Mm. That's deep.
Yeah.
You mentioned seeking a therapist.
Yeah.
If I'm not ready to seek a therapist, am I able to begin the healing myself? Help me to unravel what I'm hiding. Is that
Yeah.
possible?
I think it can be possible, but then in certain aspects, your view of yourself is solely myopic.
Mm.
You've got to have other individuals who can
Mhm.
see in you what you may not see in yourself. whether that may be an uncle, whether that may be a friend, whether that may be a cousin, whether that may be a homeboy, whether that may be a frat brother,
Mhm.
whoever it may be, whether it may be an older brother in the community, one of them OGs
Mhm.
who is trustworthy,
Yeah.
to let you know that life teaches you in two ways: mistakes and mentors. It's better to learn from the mistakes of a mentor than to make your own. And I believe it is taking the time to move in a place of isolation.
Mhm.
Isolation leads to restoration. Isolation leads to elevation. It is the whole aspect of re-examining, reconfiguring, being able to be introspective enough to reevaluate your life
Mhm.
and see where it is that you are.
Mhm.
One of the most painful things that people can do, that many neglect doing, is think. When you're muting all the noise around you to hear the voice within you, I
Mhm.
think you really do find true clarity, and you see that it's not everybody else. You're not pointing the finger, because whenever you point the finger, you got more pointed back in your direction in general, rather than playing the blame game. Now you're able to look at what part you play in it.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, how do you redefine masculinity? Walk us through what that entails for you.
Yeah, I think masculinity is more than just the societal perception about being high value male, and generally they connect that to how much of a high earner you are.
Right.
It's about having high values. I think a real man is about someone who has standards. He has principles that he lives by. I define man as mature, assertive nurturer. When you think about it in scripture, 1 Corinthians 13, which is relegated as the love chapter, it seems as if Paul is throwing just a verse in there that doesn't seem to fit.
Mhm.
Because in the beginning, he talks about love is patient, love is kind. And I believe the word is a mirror. If you can't see your life to where you can substitute your own name for the word love, there's some changing you got to do. If you can't substitute Pookie or Ray Ray or Shaniqua's name for the word love, they may not be a person who is indicative of love. And then at the end of the scripture, the chapter rather, he says, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. It is the
Mhm.
maturational development, because to really be a man who walks in a place of maturity, you have to be a person of love. And one
Mm.
of the toughest things for us to do as men is to even express love. We say, love yourself, know your worth, and we say that's only to women. But us as men, we got to love ourselves and know our worth as well. And so,
Mhm.
being mature, being assertive, having a backbone. You're not so aggressive then, and you're not so passive, because those are both extremes. But having a principle where you stand on: my yes is my yes, my no is my no. This is what I live by.
Mhm.
And then a nurturer. Generally, we predicate nurturing to women, but us as men, you wouldn't handle a baby like you would handle bricks. Being able to handle tender loving, being able to be a person of tender loving care, and still have your brawn and your brain, still have your muscles and your mindset, is really
Yes.
what it's all about. And neither one of those makes you deficient. It makes you sufficient in who it is that you are.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you about a couple of ideas from your book. I want to talk about you have a chapter that advises to focus on your focus. Explain that.
Yeah, I really believe the whole aspect of focus lends itself to how you live your life. In many cases, you see me wearing my glasses. I see you a glasses wearer as well. My glasses uh, give me help to enhance my sight.
Yes.
The perspective of the prescription helps to enhance my vision. But if I were to remove my glasses, it would put me out of focus. And
Mhm.
I think one of the main aspects is looking at what we're looking through. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I
Mhm.
think our focus has to be indicative of having a vision. Without a vision, the people perish. Every man has to have a vision for his life. You can't expect anybody to follow you if you don't know where you're going. And so I believe being focused on your focus through the lens and the prism of purpose. Job is what you're paid for. Your purpose is what you're made for. As long as you have a pulse, you have
Yeah.
a purpose. Being able to define what it is that you were created to do. Knowing, being able to answer certain questions such as who am I? What was I created to do? Where am I going? Who do I want coming with me? All of those particular questions now help to redefine, realign your life, and then put you in the prism of focus to where now you can see in your life if this doesn't fit the perspective and the prism of my purpose, I got to say no to it. But
Mm.
also, no means new opportunity because I'm saying yes to myself.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Nolan, for listening in. Nolan says he's going to add this to his collection as he is on the healing journey. So thank you, Nolan, for that. I
Most
recently had
absolutely.
a conversation with an adult male, and we discussed his life growing up. And he recalled a time where he was 5 years old and his mom called him retarded and dumb. As he
Mhm.
spoke about what that did to him and he began to shut his vulnerability down, and he started joking with himself, calling himself retarded. And as I'm listening in those moments, I had to take myself out of work mode and place myself into ministry mode and began to call out what I saw hints of geniusness. I began to speak to his brain processes. I called out his delays, and as I was speaking to him, he began to shiver. Right then and there, I saw the importance of breathing life or resuscitating someone back to life by the power of my words. In your book, you wrote on the importance of affirmations or positive self talk. What begins to intrinsically happen? And also, if I see some intrinsic transformation, what happens extrinsically?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that oftentimes the words that people speak over our lives, in many cases, now frames our future.
Mhm,
It becomes a deleterious detour to our destiny. And
mhm,
I believe your words create your world. What you speak into the atmosphere will appear. And generally, what we're repeating, we're living out what people have said over our lives. Oftentimes, people's opinions now become our prison. And so
mm,
to be able to break out of that, I believe you got to adopt certain I am statements.
mhm.
You got to speak life over your life. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. They say words, they say sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt. Yes, they do. And so I believe one of the aspects is that you have to now frame your future with the words that you speak over your life. Dr.
Yes.
Sigmund Freud said, "We are in adulthood what we have experienced in childhood." Dr. Joy DeGroy, in her book Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome, talks about the trauma that we carry in our DNA from our ancestors, generational trauma. Trauma and triggers becomes TNT. It becomes explosive in our lives to where we blow up our future based upon what somebody said about us. And so I think one thing that we have to do is we have to recognize that we have value. We have to recognize that we are worthy of love. We're worthy of giving love, also receiving love. I think we have to affirm ourselves every day.
Mhm.
It is a quote that suggests that everyone has a crown over their head that one day they'll grow tall enough to wear. And so I believe every single day you have to crown yourself. And then the maturational development to wear your crown, to grow up, is not just physical, it's spiritual, it's social, it's intellectual, it's psychological, it's down those alleys of life, so to speak. And so being able to speak life over your life every day, telling yourself that there's a king inside of you, brother, telling yourself that there's a queen inside of you, sister, telling yourself that money flows to you easily and effortlessly, telling yourself that your feet are your steps are ordered by the Lord and favor is going to follow you each and every single day of your life, everywhere that you go. Being able to affirm yourself and speak life over your life, I think it's about handling yourself gently. Every one of us has
Yes.
a fragile do not drop label on our lives. And in
Mm,
many cases, many times we've been like Mephibosheth,
mhm.
the person who was supposed to nurture and nurse us back to health wound up dropping us. And so, in that aspect, you got to pick yourself up. You got to tell yourself you're not a worrier, you're a warrior. You're not a chump, you're a champion. You're not a chicken, you're an eagle. You're not chained to your past. You're free for your future.
Yeah.
And so, I think all of that helps you to shift and really mold the landscape of your life to move you to a new level.
Amen. That just those things that you just spoke actually gave me some life and gave me some strength. So I appreciate that. And I know that others listening feel the same. Um, how do you deal with this? Is an audience question. How do you deal with not having your father's affirmation and identity foundation from him? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I believe there are certain things you may never get over. Some
Mhm.
things you just have to manage, even to
Mm,
this day. If I'm in a barber shop or if I'm in a mall or something like that, if I'm at the game and I see a brother with his son,
mhm.
and he's holding his son's head because his son is, energetic and he wants to see this, that, and the other. To
Yeah,
a certain degree, sometimes I feel like, wow, I wish I would have had that. I wish I would have been able to experience all of that love and vitality that fathers generally give to their sons, or should do that. I'm grateful though, in the midst of still having an amicable relationship with my father, much less him not being there when I needed him to be. That
mhm.
other males and men stepped into my life. For instance, my grandfather, God rest his soul, taught me how to tie a tie and taught me how to be tied to success. He said, Eddie, you'll never have to tell anybody how good you are. If you're good at what you do, they'll tell you.
Yeah,
I've had other mentors who were of my skin complexion and those who were not,
right.
who saw something in me and made deposits in my life so that I could make withdrawals for the rest of my life. And so, it is the scripture: when father or mother forsake you, then the Lord will raise you up, and He'll raise up people to raise you up. He'll
Yes.
raise up people to nurture you, to protect you, to guide you, to rear you in a different direction. And so, sometimes as well, we have to also reparent ourselves. We have to be the person who did not speak life into our lives. Sometimes I heard somebody say it's good for you to find a baby picture of yourself or just a younger picture of yourself, and every single day affirm that picture.
Mm,
Affirm the little boy in you. Affirm the little girl in you, who was not told that you were beautiful, who was not told that you were significant, who was not told that you were going to be successful. All the
mm.
words that you wish were told to you, now you have to do it for yourself. And when you do it for yourself, I believe as a result, other people will do it for you too.
I love that. I love how you also said you have to learn to manage it. And that doesn't mean neglect it. That doesn't mean to repress it. That means you are acknowledging that it's there, but now you're going to manage it in a way where it's not negatively impacting you. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Thank you
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, and I think as
Here's
well, just take it another step to say, to the managerial process is to admit and say, this hurt. I
yeah,
wish this was this way. I wish I was loved a certain way. And now, as a result of it, I release the bitterness. I forgive to live. I don't hold any grudges, but I loosen and let it go so that I can now love myself in the way I should be loved.
yes. Here's another audience question. Speak to the importance of making true bonds with other men.
Yes, at the height of the pandemic, the New York Times suggested in an article that the relationships between men were in a pandemic of their own. To a certain degree, you could use the word mandemic,
Mhm.
because all of our relationships for us as men, it was solely around sports, going to a bar, or an event. And many of our conversations were solely around money, sports, and women. There
Mm,
was no depth. And so when the pandemic shut down all the doors, it shut down in many cases our relationships too, because our
Yeah.
relationships in many cases were very surface and superficial.
Mm.
And I think the pandemic put in a prism and even in praxis the whole aspect that iron really has to sharpen iron.
Mhm.
So a man has to sharpen the countenance of his friend.
Yeah.
Being able to have real tough conversations about this is what's going on at home. This is how I
Mm.
feel about my wife. This is how I feel about my spouse in my house. This is how I feel about my children. This is about how I feel about my future. And I have
Mm.
nobody else to necessarily talk to. I need to be able to confide in a brother and him not see me as weak or see me as less than a man.
Right.
For many of us as men, we don't have many of those relationships.
Mm.
And so rather than us verbalize, what we do is we internalize. And the
Mm.
problem is we get locked in, and the tough thing is we don't know how to unlock ourselves. And so we
Right.
go through life mean mugging, acting real tough. The only emotion that society has relegated for us to show is the emotion of anger. Because
Mm.
we believe anger is just what makes you a man. No, anger is just one letter away from danger. And so being able to unpack all of what it is that we have experienced with brothers who are trustworthy, with brothers who say, "Hey, bro, I really got your back." Who not just gonna bro you and they don't know you, but really speak life into your life and allow you to just take off the cape. Superman can't fly around all day. He's got to
Right.
have a soft space and place to land.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. LaDon, thank you for listening, said providing each the opportunity to have a safe space. That's what it's all about. And my other question from another audience member, what are some strategies to deal with the internal pressure to succeed, compounded by cultural pressure and societal efforts to undermine us? So, what are some strategies to deal with the internal pressure to succeed, coupled with cultural pressure and societal efforts undermining us?
Yeah, they say pressure makes diamonds, but in many cases, sometimes pressure bursts pipes.
Mm.
And we put so much pressure on ourselves, and oftentimes the pressure is relegated to what we see other people doing
Mhm.
because we're operating in a place of comparison
Mm.
versus collaboration. It's a spirit of
Mm.
competition versus collaboration. Oftentimes, us as men, we're raised and reared to compete.
Mm.
Right? I got to show how tough I am. I got to show how good I am. I got to show all my gifts and my talents. I got to show that I'm better than you. Living in a dog eat dog world and society, uh, we put so much pressure on ourselves because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Mm.
not realizing that the people who we're trying to keep up with, oftentimes, it's a facade, it's a
Mm.
smokescreen. You're comparing your relationship to other people's, and in many cases, they're struggling just as much as you are. You tried to quit your job because you thought everybody else was an entrepreneur making six figures, and some people are just living from paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
We have to understand that we have to redefine our own life
Yeah.
based upon what is our specific purpose or what is our specific call in our destiny. Nobody can beat you being you. And operating in the spirit of comparison, comparison is the thief of joy
Yeah.
because now it robs you of who it is that you are because now you're trying to uh, you're trying to compete and compare with other people versus being unique in who you are. Your greatness is in your uniqueness
Yes.
and being able to celebrate yourself on any level, how small or how great it is, not never despising the day of small beginnings. It
Yes.
takes the pressure off of you because I'm
Yes.
not walking in pressure. Now I'm walking in purpose. And when I walk in purpose, now I walk in a place of peace. I'm not competing. I'm not comparing my chapter 1 to your chapter 30. How you
Yes.
lived your life is good for you. What you went through, I might not have been able to go through it. Your journey is your own journey. My destiny is my own destiny. But I should never focus so much on the destination that I know don't enjoy the journey. Enjoy the scenic route of life. Enjoy the twists and turns of life. And rather than asking why, ask what do I need to learn? And I think
Mhm.
that alleviates the pressure.
That does. Dr. Eddie, I want you to do one more thing before we go. Speak to the mental and emotional Black man who is incarcerated. So the Black man who is mentally and emotionally incarcerated. Speak to him.
Yeah, when you think about society, in many cases, they're building prisons based on second and third grade reading scores.
Mhm.
The warehousing of black men in these yet to be United States of America, America's incarceration nation. And not only is it physical, in many cases, it's psychological. Chains are no longer metal, chains are now mental. And it is your specific livelihood. It is your specific place of peace and purpose in life when you free yourself from the vestiges of your past. Uh, the, I encourage my brothers who are listening here and watching even right now that in many cases you'll find more freedom when you forgive. A
Mm.
lot of times we're holding bitterness, we're holding angst, we're holding animosity, we're holding this whole tenor, and now we see our brother as a place of competition to beat up other individuals, to put down other people, to lift ourselves up.
Yeah.
Moving in that place of forgiveness, forgiving your father, forgiving your mother, the father wounds that you've held, the mother wounds that you've held, the people who you thought would be there for you, the people who you thought were praying for you, but were in many cases preying on you. The experiences that you had to where you're experiencing your expectations did not align. The people who promised you things and never came through for you. I want you to let it go. I want you to live, but the place to live is to forgive. I want you to love yourself. I want you to know your worth. I want you to celebrate who you are.
Yes.
Millions didn't make it, but you were one of the ones who did. You're alive. As long as you're not dead, God isn't done. There's still a greatness that's on the inside of you. I want you to see the king that's inside of you. I want you to see the boy that needs to be healed, not just the Superman, not just the person who's the superhero, but I want you to see that little boy, and I want you to love on that little boy. I want you to speak life into that little boy that was in you, that nobody ever gave value to. I want you to embrace yourself and not see it as weakness, but see it as strength. God loves you. God's got purpose for you. There's power. There's a destiny inside of you. There's a calling for you to fulfill. There's somebody who is waiting for you to be who you are so they can become who they're supposed to be. This is
Mm.
our time to grow. This is our time to leap to another level. This is our time to walk in the vision because
Yes.
on the place of vision is manifestation and
Yeah.
provision.
Thank you, Dr. Eddie, for that. This is our time. But before we go, tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. I have to thank you again for this incredible platform that you have. I love it. I change the narrative, and changing the narrative begins with us, one
Yes.
person at a time. So thank
Yeah.
you, your voice of choice, and you're doing so many incredible things. I'm honored to be able to share with you all. The revolution not only be televised, it'll be digitized. I want you to make sure that you connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We don't stop. At Eddie Connor Jr. EddieConnor. You can get my book, The Mask of Masculinity, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iTunes, Audible. Then I also have an incredible online academy where we focus on how to turn your purpose into profit, ideas into income, contacts into contracts, the healing, the transparency, the wholeness, the restoration that takes place in our online academy community called the Eagles Academy. Eagles don't fly away from the storm, they soar into it and use the storm to go higher. I'm showing you how to
Yes.
do that. All you have to do is go to www.theeaglesacademy.com. Tap the join now button, join us. I do incredible teaching, seminars, trainings, and then we have just a great team of people. You don't just go as far as your team. You don't just go as far as your dream. You go as far as your team. They understand that their network determines their net worth. I want you to connect with us on another level. TheEaglesAcademy.com. So Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you for allowing me to highlight you and for doing your part in changing the narrative. And lastly, for keeping your commitment by being a part of the show. That means a lot. Your calm spirit just has illuminated the show today. I thank you for that. If you've enjoyed the show, please let us know. We would love to shout you out and post your comments. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us at ichangethenarrative@gmail.com. We would love to share your story for I Change the Narrative merchandise. Visit ichangethenarrative.org. Thank you to our sponsors, So Organic, So Suave. You can follow Sauce on Instagram for the latest in product news and updates. You can visit sossd.co. Meet us here next Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll have more great show, more great conversation. Thank you all so much for listening.